Hi guys, my name is Izzy. I'm a sporadic YouTuber, and by that I mean there has been a video every single day this week. I know, it's nuts. But we are at the end of Booktubeathon and I kind of want to just bawl my eyes out because I don't want it to be over and I'm really upset about it. But I am doing the last challenge, so here I am. I absolutely love the idea of this challenge. I think it is a great way to really show each other in the community what reading means to us and really show like the impact that reading has. So without further ado, I'm going to get into a little story about the series of unfortunate events. Alright, so this is the story of the series, but this book in particular. So this is the series of unfortunate events, The Bad Beginning. This is the first book. This one is so beat up. This is the first copy that I've ever owned in my entire life. I mean, as a kid, this is the first copy. This is right about the time that they came out. It was a new book when I got it, and it has been dropped in a tub, I think. It has been bent. It has taken some wear. The spine is starting to fringe out. It even has my third grade teacher's name in it because I got this from her class. So we had to do a book report on a book of our choice, and it was a really fun thing, and I had never picked these up. And this was in her classroom and was one of the books that she recommended for me to read. She's like, here, you might enjoy this. So she gave this to me, and I ended up loving it so much that she let me actually keep the book. Let me just tell you a little backstory. So during this time that these books came out, my parents went through a divorce or were separated, and it was a really weird time for my family. And I was, you know, kind of lost. And so, this is really emotional to talk about, but it's the truth. So these books, even though the stories are kind of sad and depressing when you think about it, like nothing good ever happens to these poor orphans, their like misery and pain kind of was what I was feeling. Like it helped to know that someone else was suffering. Does that sound evil? That sounds like sadistic, but it did. It helped to know that someone else was suffering through the kind of same thing that I was. Even though they lost their parents in a terrible fire and mine were still alive, they were just separated. It became one of the books that I cherish more than any. My favorite series of all time. Like, nothing will ever replace this series. Ever. Ever. Because of the emotional impact it had on me. It wasn't just the style of writing, which is great, by the way. It wasn't just the story, which was great, by the way. It wasn't just the cast of characters, which are great, by the way. It wasn't any of that. It was just the fact that this book was exactly there at the moment when I needed it most. And I remember I was like one of the only people that were reading these at the time. Like, I knew no one that was reading these books. So I would purposely have to go to like the bookstore. I would have to go and I would have to tell them, like, when the next one came out, there would always be like an announcement, or there would be like something that would tell me when the next one came out, and I would always go to the bookstore and I would tell them to pre-order it for me, like, because they would never ever order it. So, ever. Like, they just weren't ever in stock. So I always had to pre-order the next book because I wanted it. The day it came out, I wanted it and I needed it. And my dad didn't have much money at the time, and you know, we never did. We were quite poor growing up. But he always scraped together money for books. Always. Growing up, I always loved to read, and he always scraped money together for books. He always said, toys, you don't need. Books, you need. We'll find a way. If it's at a thrift, if you have to get books at a thrift store for super cheap, if I saw books at like a yard sale or something, he would scrape up what little money he had to give me books. And this was the same kind of scenario. Like, every time this new book came out, he would be there with the money regardless. And they weren't that expensive. I think the hardcovers are about like $11. But at the time, $11, that's a couple meals if you ration it out properly. I mean, that's a couple loaves of bread and some peanut butter. So that's a couple meals for us. That's a box of cereal and a jug of, you know, some milk and a couple of meals. So the fact that my dad would scrape together the very, like, whatever he had just so I could be happy and read my books were what really made me like absolutely appreciate this series. Yeah, so without getting a little emotional, if it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't have never finished this series, because he wouldn't have, you know, got them for me. I would have been way behind. It probably would have lost interest. But he did what he could. He scraped together as much money as he could and all that fun stuff just so I could read. He always did. So I'm really grateful, you know, to this day. I'm grateful that I even enjoy reading. It's all because of him. So yeah. So that story took a different turn than I was expecting, but that's the truth. Alright. So there you guys have it. That's the story of a series of unfortunate events for you, and a little bit about my daddy. But anyway, peace. I'm out. I hope you're having a good readathon. If you're looking for another readathon right after this one, Alphabet-thon is coming up next, so I'm hoping not to burn out. But I will see you guys soon. Love ya. Bye. All that stuff. Peace. I'm out. Bye.